Hi guys! E-commerce is the process of buying and selling a product or service online. What started as a process for sending commercial documents has blossomed into an estimated $2.1 billion global buyers in 2021, which is approximately 27.2% of the world's population. The impact of e-commerce has on society is endless, and with the internet continuing to evolve, it hasn't even peaked yet. Welcome to our live stream, folks. I am Kandice Tyler, the Community Relations Coordinator here at BizIQ, and today you are joining us as we talk about a comprehensive guide to SEO product descriptions. I am joined by the ever-talented Nick Robello, who is our content specialist. But Nick, for some of our newcomers who may be tuning in, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at BizIQ?
Oh, sure thing, Candice. Thank you again for having me. So before coming to BizIQ in order to work on content, I attended the University of Oxford to get a master's degree in creative writing with a focus in poetry. As far as what I do here at BizIQ, I manage all of the content for organic customers, producing, proofreading, and then implementing a range of types of content from page content, blogs as well, and even offsite content that we use to create links for them.
Okay, so you have some skills, skills, right?
Just a little bit.
Okay. Now, we all know that customers are more educated than ever. 53% of shoppers research a product before they make a purchasing decision. So if your website's copy and product descriptions need to be on point, but luckily for our BizIQ customers, they have one intelligent copywriter at BizIQ who's got their back. But Nick, can you tell us about copywriting and product descriptions?
Sure thing. So when it comes to your content, and especially your product descriptions, you want to make sure that the product page is going to rank highly, but you also want to make sure that your customer has the information that they need in order to make an informed decision. So by focusing your product descriptions on overall readability by your customers, as well as the SEO needs, which can range from accurate keyword usage to that flow and layout, you end up situating yourself better to rank online because the search engines ultimately look at the relevance, the uniqueness of the content, and the originality when it comes to ranking products for a specific search query.
Yes, and I love that point that you made about readability because we'll definitely dive more into it later here in our little dance that we do. But the first step to comprehensive SEO product descriptions is to understand the product. You want to give accurate information on your customers rather than mislead them. Nick, can you give us some tips on how they can better understand their products?
Certainly. So for each product that you are writing a description for, there's ultimately going to be a range of information that your customers are going to be looking for. And this is what you ultimately need to know when you're writing your description. So you want to truly understand the use or purpose of that product. So that way you can evaluate and explain the main benefits of the product. So if it's not a product that you yourself produce and you get it from a manufacturer, I would suggest contacting the manufacturer to get more specific technical information. Otherwise, just testing that product either through a visual demo or just on your own time. Ultimately, this all boils down to you need to do your research so that you can accurately talk about the product.
Yes, and I especially think that's important when you were talking about the visual demo, because when your customers think about you, hopefully they're thinking about you, the person. They have a person tied to the entity or something like that. But yeah, I think it's interesting to add that to the demo so that our customers can kind of make that connection, especially if you're not producing the said product or service. But the next step is to define and understand who the product's customers are. So once you know your customers will understand the needs and connect them to the product's benefits. A great way to do this is by creating buyer personas. So Nick, can you talk to us about buyer personas and why it's important?
Certainly, yeah. So with a buyer persona, essentially what you're doing is creating a reference point that you can then consult whenever you're creating your product descriptions as well as writing other website content. It helps you understand and evaluate your customers' needs and behavior. So some of the information that your persona could include will range from like their age, their gender, their geographic region, their income, education level, and any other background interests. So just for example, you could have Jen, who's in her 50s and she works in the publishing industry. She lives in Iowa. Her income range is in the 50 to 60K a year. Her education is an undergrad from NYU. And then her interests are that she likes doing crochet and knitting on the weekends. And this gives you just a loose structure of what one of your potential customers could look like so that you know how to write to them and their wants and their needs.
Yes, it is all about the personalization. That's how you really get ahead in marketing. But another key benefit to SEO product descriptions is to focus on the product benefits in addition to the features. So, Nick, can you tell us why our viewers need to be focused on that?
Yeah, so we all really need to know that we all know that our customers are generally just searching through the product descriptions, looking for information and features that are included, but this isn't really what ends up selling them on the product. Instead, it's the benefits that are offered by that product that most frequently cause a potential customer to make a purchase in the end. So the real key when writing your product description is to make it clear how your products and their features lead to the benefits that they could see.
Okay, so just so we're clear, the benefits are like the characteristics of or the outcomes from your product, while the features are the characteristics of those products.
Exactly, yeah. And you want to just tie it together so it's clear, like this product has this feature, that's going to cause you to experience this benefit.
Love it. Now, being informative is key to make sure that customers understand your products and that they have proper expectations about what to expect. You want your customer more informed because then they are less likely to regret the choice and maybe even want a refund. But Nick, how can our viewers make sure that their product descriptions are also informative?
So I would say the main thing here really is just not to make the mistake of overselling your product or service. Many times people end up saying things like world's best or top ranking, best selling, any other generic terms or statements that we've seen like this before. We all realistically should believe in the product or service that we're offering. But at this point, there's so many companies and websites out there that are claiming to be the world's best, which we can't all be the number one best at what we provide. So rather than spending the time in your product description trying to convince a potential customer that you're the best at what you do, you should instead be focusing on communicating what your product does, what the benefits are, and how your customer is going to use that product so that they can purchase it and then make their own determination from there.
Yes, I cannot tell you as a marketer how much I hate seeing people advertise with the world's best. I don't know why. It's just like that little tiny thing that gets under my skin. Like, how do you know? How do you know? But it's also right. It's also very important to consider the vocabulary that you use. I know we talked about readability, or you mentioned it just a little bit there. So let's dive in. Although language may depend on the audience, it's better to use basic language. Nick, are there anything that you are looking through? Is there a reading level that you shoot for generally? What do you think about readability?
So obviously, this ultimately will depend on your product and audience. I would say it's almost always better to just use basic language. The use of simple language is more considerate to your newer customers, and customers from any background and education level can read it and engage with it. I would say a great starting point is to write towards a high school reading level. This makes it so that your product is able to be easily scanned and understood by anyone, whether they're a high school grad or they're currently teaching as a professor at a university. I think sometimes people mistake writing at a high school level for not having the knowledge and understanding to be able to speak about a thing, but I would argue that being able to read and understand a complicated process and then explain it in simple terms is much harder.
Yes, I love that too. And speaking of school, next on our list of tips is plagiarism. I know some of you may have thought, hey, we're out of school. SEO doesn't care about plagiarism. You're wrong. It can affect your rankings too. Copy and pasting is a major factor that prevents many product descriptions from ranking highly or being in the search engine results. But Nick, how else does plagiarism affect business owners?
Yeah, so it can be a serious problem. If you copy and paste the product description from like a manufacturer's site, it can create a range of issues for you. Really, at best, if you have the permission from the manufacturer to be using that content, what ends up happening is the search engine doesn't display your page because it sees that the content you've put up matches what the manufacturer has, and that page is older, so it's going to pick theirs over yours every time. At worst, you could end up facing legal issues for taking that content without explicitly getting their permission, which can result in a damaged reputation or business relationship with that manufacturer. They may even decide not to sell to you anymore. And it also could just seriously affect how your potential customers see you.
Yes, so always, always, always create your own content. Now, I know that keywords do play a part in product descriptions. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about that?
Sure thing. Yeah. So the search engine algorithms usually scan and assess the keyword density of each page, and then they use that information to rank the appropriate search terms. So ideally, you should have your keyword appear in the content roughly every 200 to 300 words. I would say the main thing here is that you want to avoid keyword stuffing at all costs, and just make sure that you're using those keywords naturally when writing. So same as you would be telling me about how a product works, those keywords will come up because it is what it does, but you shouldn't just have it every other word.
Yeah, so you don't want to go to, I don't know, Nick's hot dog stand located in Phoenix, Arizona, but don't forget to go to Nick's hot dog stand. He has the best hot dogs ever.
Yep, just hot dogs and then more hot dogs, and then you can come to Phoenix for hot dogs. Like, that's not what you want.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the attention span of internet users is declining. And I can say from like firsthand experience, it's rough out here. Okay, guys? But Nick, when you're writing copy, how do you make sure that the people with the shortest attention span can still read your content?
So one of the main things that I do, and I would advise anyone who's writing a product description to do as well, is to just really make that content scannable. Whether you do that through like a bulleted list, a numbered list, or any other layout to make it so that they can quickly just glance at it, get the information that they need. This allows your customers to quickly read the description of a product and find the information that they need, because we're all just looking for very specific things. We're not sitting down and saying, I'm going to read an essay right now. So just put yourself in their shoes and imagine what are the 2 to 3 things they're going to be asking and looking for, and then make it scannable so that then from there they can decide, do I want to read more or do I want to purchase this?
All good tips. Now, before we wrap up today's show, can you give our viewers one final copywriting tip, please?
Yeah, my final tip would be kind of like we talked about already, really just making sure to keep things brief. We have a tendency, especially when it comes to writing content, to really go overboard with our descriptions and our language. Like I said, like I came from a background in writing, it can be really fun to write that and even to edit it, but it's not fun for your customers to read. Really, you just want to give them the basics of what they're looking for and leave that fun language play for other things like blog posts, personal interactions, and anecdotes. You can make video content, just not in your like service page content and product descriptions.
Yes, love it. Thank you, Nick, for taking the time to join us today. And if you have any questions about what Nick and I have talked about today, please feel free to either drop us a DM or you can drop it in the comment section below, and we would be happy to continue the conversation. But thank you again, Nick, for joining us.
No problem. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak about this.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that is all we have for you today. Tune in next week as we will be probably meeting with somebody else and talking about some more wonderful things happening in the digital marketing space. All right. Bye. See you guys next week.
Bye.